All right, people are continuing to stream in. We're just setting up a live stream on Facebook as well. But let's kick stuff off. All right. Well, hello everybody. My name is Chris Lee, and I'm head of design and development at Backyard ADUs, a company myself and a few co-founders started last year to help people build small homes, initially in backyards, but now more and more just on standalone pieces of land. Because as it turns out, there's a lot of people out there that don't want the big 2,000, 3,000 square foot homes that have been built for the last 30 years. And we agree. So tonight, we are going to talk about small home design. And Alexis Bellis, who is on the call as well, is going to be helping out. She's going to be kind of emceeing, fielding questions, and making sure that everyone on the call is getting what they need. Alexis, do you want to walk everyone through how to get questions out there and how we'll try to make sure their voices are heard?
Yeah, for sure. So the best way to have your question answered is to put it in the Q&A. That should be at the bottom of your screen. Just type it out, and then I will get to those as quickly as possible and get those to Chris. That's about the gist.
All right. Hey, Caesar, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. So I guess to kick things off, people have asked what my background is and why am I talking about small home design. So I don't come from a design background. I'm not an architect and I'm not even an engineer. but I've been working on small home design here for several years, starting with figuring out how to rejigger multifamily homes. I don't know if anyone is familiar with the old rambling farmhouse or Victorian that randomly gets cut up over the years and creates a bunch of subpar apartments. That's where I first started thinking about like using small spaces, creating good spaces that are functional, and dove in headfirst when me and a few colleagues found the opportunity to start building small homes in backyards for people trying to age in place or just simply anyone trying to downsize. And here we are, helping people build small homes and having a ton of fun doing it. And quite honestly, learning every day as we help people do it. I think one of the key things that we've learned in helping people do this is that people know what they want. And the key is to figure out how to apply that with trade-offs in something that will fit in the backyard or the piece of land that you're trying to build on. And then of course, layering in the budget. So we're gonna talk about that tonight and how you can go about doing that. We're gonna talk about the philosophy that we use and that we think really everyone should use when trying to design a small home because space is so scarce. And then to help kind of show the process, we're going to talk about a couple of the projects that we're actually working on right now with clients. We've got a 450 square foot home that we're designing for a backyard in Florence, Massachusetts. And then we're going to talk about a really neat home, which is a story and a half that we're working on to be built in Great Barrington, Mass, which is the future homeowner of this has no fear, which is really exciting from a design perspective because we can push the envelope on bed nooks and ceiling heights on the second floor and smaller spaces. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. So I'm going to share my screen and jump down here. Let's share desktop 2. Okay. jump over here to Canva. All right, small home design 101. What you're looking at is a small living room, if you can believe it or not. It looks pretty big with the windows, but that accent wall really helps make it seem a little bit deeper and wider than it actually is. So we exclusively build homes small. We've kind of been defining that a small home is something less than 1,200 square feet. But in reality, a small home it's kind of small depending relative to a big home, and small is different to everybody. So if you used to live in a 3,000 square foot home, a 1,500 square foot home might be small. Or if you have a family of four, building something that's got 400 square feet per person might be small versus the traditional of like 600-700 square feet. But the key is the focus of designing small homes is a totally different exercise than trying to figure out how to design your traditional large home. And the reason being is when you go about designing a bigger house, the houses that everyone is familiar with, you can make up for errors in your design process by creating more open space. And when you're designing bigger homes, you don't have to think as much about furniture because most furniture is designed for bigger homes, and there's a lot of room for error if you have a 20-foot by 20-foot living room, or if you have a kitchen that has, or if you have like a $40,000 kitchen with 30 or 40 cabinets, there's lots of room for error. But when you're thinking about a small home, you don't have that luxury. You're thinking about every space and making sure that each space that you include is functional. So as I said, every inch really does count. And this comes into play. There's a picture of a kitchen here. Well, it comes into play a lot in a kitchen. And a good example is a refrigerator. A refrigerator is a place to store food, and everybody needs a different size refrigerator, and they make all kinds of different size refrigerators. And when you change the size of that appliance, you're sacrificing cabinet space or you're sacrificing living space. So every inch counts. If you go with a 24-inch fridge versus a 28-inch fridge, it means you're going to you may have to sacrifice a slide out recycling trash bin in one of the cabinets. It might mean that a hallway adjacent to the fridge might have to be 3 feet instead of the more generous 3.5 or 4 feet. And in the kitchen, there's lots of examples of that. A sink is a good one. There are huge farmhouse sinks, which if one of your passions is gardening and picking leafy greens and canning vegetables and doing lots of cooking, then that might be an area that you need to go from a typical single bowl 24-inch sink to a giant farmhouse double bowl 36-inch sink and sacrifice area somewhere else. Bathrooms are a big point where every inch counts as well. And you're thinking about things like accessibility versus how much time are you actually going to be in there. But every inch really does count. And this also plays into, as some people may be aware, we use offsite construction where we build often based on certain widths for hitting shipping and factory efficiencies. And when you're doing that, it really means that every inch counts because you're working with a predetermined rectangle or a predetermined L shape or something like that. And it really makes you think about the trade-offs. But it's not just it's not just with offsite construction. When you're designing, it's always there, unless you just want to make it bigger, which is the typical path of traditional design and construction, is to, if you can't get something in, you just make it bigger. So this is a book that has inspired a lot of our thinking when it comes to designing small spaces. It's a pattern language, and it's by a group of people. The lead author was Christopher Alexander. And this was recommended to us early on. And it's a really thick book. It's, I don't know how many pages it is, but it's probably 3 or 4 inches thick. And the pattern language, what they're referring to is when you're thinking about designing a home, you're thinking about patterns of living, and you're coming up with things that you might do in your day, and you're designing around those things. So one pattern that you might design for is having family over for the holidays and envisioning them all sitting around in the living room or at a dining table and looking at your space and saying, can I accommodate this? Is this pattern something that we can do in this space? And if it's an important thing to you, you need to design for that. And you need to figure out what the minimum amount of space is for you to do that. And when you're doing design in small homes, especially with the example of having family over for the holidays, which is actually something that my wife and I just experienced. It wasn't the holidays, but we had family visit. And in our small home, we quickly realized we may not have planned enough seats in our living room if people are going to be coming over in the cold months. We planned plenty of outdoor space, but our living room was a little bit insufficient to accommodate 6, 7, 8 people. So that's an example of a pattern. Another one is thinking about really straightforward sleeping. What do you need when you are getting into bed? Do you need accessible space on either side of the bed, like a typical bedroom where you've got 3 feet of aisle and each aisle ends with a nightstand? Do you need that in your bedroom? And if the answer is yes, and there's lots of good reasons for the answer to be yes, the bedroom may have to take space from the kitchen or the bathroom, or you may have to make the house a little bit bigger. Alternative to that, if you don't need that accessible space, you could just push the bed up against the wall, maybe even create a little nook for it, which we're going to show you. We create a little bed nook for the Great Barrington project, which is really neat. And doing that can save an enormous amount of space. So those are some examples of patterns. And this book walks you through hundreds of them. So it has hundreds of patterns that everybody will be familiar with and everyone does in their daily life. And it gives suggestions and design ideas about how you can accommodate that pattern of living. So really good book. It's on Amazon. I think it's like 30 or 40 bucks. If you're getting ready to design a house, I would order it. It's not hard to read. It's just talking about how you live on a daily basis and some neat ideas to accommodate it. So I kind of walked through this, but when you're designing a small home, it's all about how someone's going to flow through the space. How is somebody going to go from the front door to the refrigerator to put groceries down? How is somebody going to go from the couch to the refrigerator to get a drink? Are they going to bump into somebody? How is somebody going to go to the bathroom from a different space? How is somebody going to sit down and read? These are the things that you think about to make sure that when these different activities are happening, the space doesn't feel small, because nothing makes a space feel smaller than when you're constantly bumping into the person you live with. That's one of the reasons why small spaces don't work. So you want to decide to avoid that. And if you're living alone, the concept still applies, because you are going to move through this space, and you are going to move through this space, and you're going to want to do things in different areas. Like you're not going to want your kitchen table to be the place that you work, the place that you eat, the place that you prep food, and the place that you sleep. It's just not going to work. But when we're talking about true tiny homes, sometimes that might be true, with all of the different crazy neat things that are built around that. So it's all about creating these distinct spaces and making sure that people can flow between them. So here's a picture, a diagram of what it means. So in here, we've got a bunch of distinct spaces. We've got a lounge and a living room area. We've got an entryway, transitional space to come in from outdoors. We've got a place to eat. We've got a place to prep food. And then we've got a space that goes out to where you sleep and go to the bathroom. And in this space, all of these spaces can be used independently without running into people. And they don't require completely shifting furniture around or whatnot to make them work. But they allow the possibility to shift furniture around to accommodate things like having family over. So this is a 4-foot round table right now. If you had an extendable table, it does provide you the ability to make this bigger and accommodate a dinner party. And then there are different ways you could do a sectional couch in here with a chair that would give you more seating to make this space a little bit bigger. So I'm kind of belaboring on this a little bit, but we just talked about distinct spaces, but in a small home, you're inevitably going to be doing some open concept. So combined spaces. In small homes, you're pretty much always going to be combining a kitchen and a living room. But again, the key is making sure that they aren't the same room, because just a big open room isn't necessarily going to give you give you the feel that you're looking for, or allow you to divide stuff up. But that being said, that does not mean creating small encapsulated rooms like they did back when houses, because if we roll the clock back 50 or 60 years, small homes were pretty common, and probably a lot of people have lived in a space that had a lot of teeny little old style rooms, and maybe even people have ripped walls out to make spaces more open. So it's representing two extremes, and the key is taking the best of both worlds, creating that private space, but also not creating a sense of being closed in. So here's two different kitchen layouts that kind of show different ways of doing it, and just more distinct spaces. So start with this one, because this is something that's got a lot of multi-use space. So we've got a galley style kitchen in an open floor plan, which creates a very distinct space for prepping food. Someone can be in here cooking and never worry about somebody coming and bumping into them or hovering, or someone's probably going to still try to sneak in and steal something that they're cooking, but they're going to be able to be here and do their thing. Someone can access the fridge because it's on the end without coming into the kitchen. Someone can use the sink without coming in the kitchen. But this place also has an entryway. So this is a front door that comes in, and it's an entryway. When you come in, there's a coat closet right here. There's some bar seating, and in addition to this being bar seating, underneath this overhang, there's a shoe rack. So this 40 square feet right here packs a whole ton of activity without really encroaching on anything else. And then above it is kind of a more traditional Enid kitchen layout that you've seen. And if you've got a little bit more space, something like this could work. And in these kitchens, there are distinct prep areas as well. So just because you have a small home doesn't mean you need a small unfunctional kitchen, although it could mean that you can have a small kitchen. It comes down to what you want to do. Like in this one, there's usable prep area right there. And usable prep area, you need at least 2.5, 3 feet of continuous counter space for it to be like a place where you can actually start cutting. And that's really going to feel a little bit tight. And this one has 2 of those spaces, with this island being the primary big long prep area. And then this one has this big wide area where you could have multiple workstations going, being run by 1 or 2 people. 2 people would be a little bit tight in here, but you could make it work. Okay. And if anyone has any questions or wants to dig into any of this in more detail, please feel free to raise a hand or type something in the chat. Again, this is the first time we've done this kind of webinar. We want to make sure it's useful. I know lecture style stuff can be useful sometimes, but it can also have a way of going off a cliff. Okay, so before we get into that, let's take a look at some of the stuff a couple of design things that we're working on right now. So this is a really little home, and this is one of the smallest homes that we've worked on so far. This is something we're working on for a backyard in Florence. And this is 440 square feet, and that's the footprint, exterior wall to exterior wall. And as you can see, we've got a whole ton of combined spaces here. And when you get this small, it's really hard to break them up. And we were working on this with a homeowner, and some of the challenges they brought up are very valid. One, there's a lot of overlap here. The kitchen is really part of the living room. There's not really dining area separation, and then there's definitely not a separated entryway. So you're going to be constantly coming in and tracking stuff into the living room and directly into the kitchen. So an interesting thing that we tried to do here, without adding a whole lot of square feet, is to simply say, okay, what is a way that we can recapture some of this space? And we decided to do this. So very similar, but we were looking at adding a little bump out here. So just adding, I think this is about 35 or 40 additional square feet. But with that, create a situation where it feels a little bit more separated, where you're not coming in soaking wet directly into the house. Created a second space here where you could have where someone could work from a desk, or have a dining area, and then separated out the living and the kitchen area a little bit. So very similar footprints, but the look and feel ends up being quite different in terms of usability. So this is the bigger one with this new bump out and purpose big closet out here. Reckon this is something that would get split between coats and maybe a pantry. And then if I do the same thing into this house, which again looks very similar on the floor plan, but as you can see, looks a heck of a lot smaller when you actually are in it and walking around. It feels a little bit more like you're in all of the spaces all at once. So kind of a neat challenge and showing what a little extra space can do, and more than anything, just creating a very distinct space for something that for an activity that really takes up a lot of space. For some reason, people accumulate a lot of shoes, myself included, like not lots of like the same shoes, but hiking shoes, sandals, formal shoes, running shoes, all kinds of jackets. They tend to take up a lot of space, and you really notice it when you're trying to live in a small home. And it's not really just the shoes. You can think about bringing the mail in. It just has a habit of taking over a living area. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about bathrooms. Bathrooms. Bathrooms are interesting. They're a space where you don't spend a whole lot of time, unless you are someone that enjoys taking long baths. I mean, that's a quite common exception, is someone who loves a soaker tub. But while you don't spend a lot of time usually in the bathroom, the time that you spend in there is really important. And there are aspects of, and if you design a bathroom that's too small, you could be in a situation where you can't use it, especially if you're trying to age in place. And you can really think about this with, and we can actually jump back to here and talk about this bathroom, because this has got a tub in it. You really think if you design a bathroom that has a small corner shower, doesn't have space to maneuver, and you end up in a walker at some point, you may not be able to come into the bathroom and use it on your own, which would create a situation that makes your house almost unlivable, or force a situation where you need to do an expensive remodel. But let me show you. We can manipulate this bathroom a little bit. We grab we can convert this bathroom into the smallest bathroom that you can have and still achieve code compliance. So typical corner shower is 38 inches. I'm going to drop that there. I'm going to pull this tub out, and I'm just going to rejigger this bathroom real quick to show what a real teeny bathroom could be. So we've done these a few times. So kind of interesting. So we just made this bathroom really little. This is about as small as you can get and meet code, and you can win back a whole bunch of space out here. You just gain a whole bunch of square footage and create an opportunity to possibly put a pantry right here, a linen closet right here, a washer dryer right here, all kinds of different stuff. But what also just happened was we created a bathroom that, if you are young and mobile and just take quick showers, works, but does not work for somebody who may need a little bit more room in the shower, might need help in the shower at some point, or might be in a walker. And if they're in a wheelchair, forget about it. So that's kind of a neat way to visualize exactly what happens when you're thinking through bathroom design. When you're designing a bathroom too, you can get away. One of the things that's tough in small home design is fitting all of the appliances you generally need. And one way to make the bathroom a little bit bigger without sacrificing square feet is to make room in there for the washer dryer, a stackable washer dryer. I think we've got a question.
Yes. We have a question from Sandy. Can you make it quite small and more user-friendly if you use a cavity sliding door instead of the regular swinging door?
So a pocket door in a bathroom doesn't necessarily allow you to make the bathroom any smaller, unfortunately. You still need the things that restrict bathroom size are going to be minimum required spaces in front of a toilet and to get out of a shower or get out of a tub. You need certain amounts of space in front of each. What the pocket door does do, however, is it does eliminate that swing. So if you are using a walker, if you are in a wheelchair, you're not going to have to negotiate around a door to close it again. So that does help. Pocket doors don't close quite as nicely as a regular door. So there's potential for some privacy concerns with pocket doors. You can get pocket doors that like the average pocket door doesn't. And then the other thing you lose when you go to a pocket door is you can't hang anything on the back of it. And often in a bathroom, the back of the door is a neat spot to hang a towel. So again, another really good example of trade-offs. Pocket doors have lots of benefits in a bathroom, but there's a couple of drawbacks too. So good question. On the topic of pocket doors are great in bedrooms, especially if the house is only going to be lived in by one or two people, because often in a one-bedroom home, the bedroom door is probably just going to be left open. And if it's a pocket door, you can leave it open without any issue, and it's never going to get in the way. And if you leave that pocket door open, it's going to allow light to transfer into the rest of the house, which makes a big difference, and it just makes it feel a little bit bigger. Every time you shut a door, you're going to make a space feel a little bit smaller than it actually is. So bathroom design, I guess just in summary, the key is to figure out how to weigh the fact that you might not be in there very much with making sure that it is going to meet accessibility needs, if that's something that you're concerned about now or in 10, 20 years. And how small is too small? Again, it just comes down to what that accessibility question is. And on the vanity side of it, do you want a nice big 60-inch tile shower, or do you want that deep soaker tub to relax in? And if those are things that you want to do, the bathroom, that's going to the shower utility or the tub size is going to be something that dictates the layout of the bathroom, and then downstream, that's going to impact how you lay out your whole house. So bathrooms are a very important place to start. Okay. Oh, we just kind of talked about this. So here's a couple more bathroom layouts. So we talked about this one. I just kind of drew this. This is a little bit bigger than we just did. This has got a bigger vanity in it. And this has got a little bit more space around the toilet, but this is a little bathroom, and would be tough as this tower. It would be tough to use if you were going to try to age in place in it. This bathroom, however, is a cavernous bathroom. It's not quite ADA accessible, but it's close. And it's close because it's just shy of a 5-foot radius in here. But the space around the toilet is not exactly what you need to be fully commercially ADA accessible. But something like this would likely be considered visitable by a wheelchair. And it's a loose definition, visitable by a wheelchair, but some of the things that you're looking for is somebody could wheel in here, close the door behind them, and do what they need to do without help. And theoretically, someone could come in here, back in next to the toilet, and then transfer onto the toilet and then go back out. Part of, to make that fully, there would have to be knee space into the sink, but we won't get fully into that tonight. And this does use the trick of, let's throw the washer dryer in the bathroom to make it a little bit bigger. So putting the washer dryer here means this extra space isn't wasted space. It's space in which to do your laundry, which is important. You need that space. All right. All right, so let's talk a little bit about bedroom design. So bedrooms, so in a small home, generally you're going to have a smaller bedroom than you would in a big home. That's going to be an area that you tend to save space. But you've got to think about stuff like space on either side of the bed. If you're designing for a couple who are going to be in the bed, you're probably going to want nightstands on both sides, and you're probably not going to want to turn sideways to get into bed every night. You're probably not going to want to climb into bed every night. So it's important things to think about. But if you're on your own, it does give more opportunities. It does give more opportunities to be creative with bed locations and save space. So this is a good opportunity to take a peek at this project that we're working on, because it's got a lot of neat ideas in it from that book, A Pattern Language by Chris Alexander. So what we're going to look at here is this teeny little bedroom. So you can ignore all of these markings. These are notes that we have to put in the plan, that we put in the plans when it goes over to engineering for them to confirm if it's going to work. But this is a tiny little bedroom. And fun fact, bedrooms have minimum sizes. And one of those minimums is you actually can't have any dimension that's less than 7 feet. And we actually just learned that when we tried to send this in, to the engineering team, and they pushed it back and said, we actually had our bedroom wall like this, tucking this bed in really tight, but that didn't pass code, which was kind of unfortunate. So, and there's minimum square feet. I think the minimum square feet for a bedroom is 70 square feet, but I wouldn't bet my life on that right now. I think it's close to that. So one of the things we wanted to show here is, so this is being designed as kind of like a ski condo getaway place up in Great Barrington. And while this bedroom like this is really tiny, this is a queen size bed, and it's very cozy. You can get 2 people sleeping in here. And with the purpose of this, both people are probably going to get out of bed at the same time and probably go to bed at the same time. So this crawl-in function is reasonable for the use. And there's tons of space when you come in here for getting dressed, changing, whatever you need to do, as well as a little closet. But it's a really neat way to stick a bedroom in a really small space if you don't need the traditional space on either side of the bed, which this room doesn't quite accommodate. Like if you have a foot on either side of the bed, like it has right now, you're going to be turning sideways to get into bed. I mean, the typical in a normal size house is going to be 3 or 4 feet on either side, so kind of like a hallway. But going down to 2 feet, is when you start feeling it. It's a little bit smaller. So the other thing with this house that I wanted to touch on was the bedrooms upstairs. And so we can jump up to the second floor. So on the second floor, so when we build half stories, we like to do them, or when we build 2 stories, we like to build them as half stories because it makes the building a lot less tall and a lot less imposing. And it makes it feel like a small house. And it also creates a really neat space upstairs. But what I wanted to show here, actually, I'm going to draw some in so this can so we can better see this. I'm going to put a knee wall here at the 4 foot. So in this second floor, it's got a gable roof, which is a triangle roof, and it's got some knee walls. And when you're doing that, you got to think very much about head height, both from a code standpoint, but also from a usability standpoint. But this is a 4 foot headline. This is a 6'8" headline. This is an important one because this is minimum head height for coming up at the top of the stairs for egress. It's minimum head height for in front of a toilet or in front of a shower. So it's an important number and an important line for designing space. But when you're thinking about putting a bed on a second story, it somewhat depends on the pitch of your roof. But if you're working with like a cape pitch roof, steeper than 10/12, you can post a bed headboard at 3.5 or 4 feet at the knee wall without forcing somebody to bend over in order to get in bed, because nobody wants to. I wouldn't say nobody, but nobody generally wants to bend over to get in bed every day. But it is kind of nice to have a bed where the ceiling's a little bit lower above you because it creates that cozy feel. And this is 4 feet, and then if you come out a foot, jumps up to 5 feet, then you go up to 2 feet, we're up to 6 feet, and roughly someone's getting into bed 2 to 3 feet from where the headboard hits. And then the other thing you think about too when you're pushing a bed against a knee wall like that is, if you sit up in bed reading, are you going to hit your head on the ceiling? We kind of did thinking about the same thing over here with 2 single beds kind of tucked in the eaves and making sure that those will work. Because again, this is a space that people are going to come and probably going to try to put a lot of people in here, families and all hanging out to go up for a weekend. And then also to note, windows on these half stories have to, if they're being used as bedrooms, have to be full egress. And sometimes you can run into issues getting them to fit with your roof lines. All right. And looking down, that's the stairs. Stairs are another topic for half story and a half homes. People have probably seen steep staircases in older homes that go up to second floors of capes. Current staircases that meet code, especially as they need to be for egress, are really big and unfortunately pretty hard to design around. They take up a lot of room in a small home. And it's a really important thing to think about when you're deciding if you're going to do a single story or a 2-story. Okay, so I'm going to sum this up. Just design process. We do have a hard stop at 6:25. We've got to be on we've got to be on a planning board hearing for North Berwick, Maine, for 6:30 in order to help someone build one of these in North Berwick. But I'll sum up the design process. So so you want to think about how you're going to go about doing this, and strategy is, are you designing to squeeze into a budget? Are you designing to fit into a specific spot in your yard? Are you designing to be passive? So you've got to set your goals, and you can and then strategize how to hit those goals. And you want to work with, I mean, you don't need to work with a designer. A lot of these design programs, there's a lot of design programs online that are free and really easy to use. That program that I was playing in is called playing in that we were using is called Home Designer Pro, and it's very intuitive. It can be tricky, but it is something that you can wrap your head around. But one of these, unless there will be a point where you probably will want to work with somebody who can let you know if what you're trying to build is going to meet code. Because there's specific things about stairs. As I mentioned, there's minimum bedroom sizes, there's minimum spaces in front of a washer dryer, your water heater has to be accessible. There's a huge laundry list of things that are not always intuitive, especially when you're trying to make small spaces. But work closely with the person that's helping you do that, to let them know what you care about. And then tactics, it's all about thinking about what you need to do. It's not about the top level square foot number, because you could probably fit just as much into a 700 square foot home as you could a 1,000 square foot home. You just got to make sure that you're going to include enough space to do the things that you do on a daily basis, whether that's storing bikes, having 6 pairs of shoes for all your different activities, lots of cooking, entertaining. You got to do it. And then, of course, after you have it, executing, getting the permits, figuring out how you're going to build it, and getting the financing in order. All right. Well, I hope this was helpful. I hope people had some takeaways. Would love feedback. If there's anything we could have done to make this more helpful, please feel free to shoot us an email. We'd love to do more sessions like this to give people more tools to get out there and start designing. If you ever want to get in contact with us, we're always happy to help point you in the right direction, or just spitball ideas, especially as it relates to the rules in your town. If you're trying to do backyard homes, or costs, or the current building environment, which is completely insane. So anything like that.
Chris, we have one question. I'm not sure if I understand what they're asking. How to get small home registered. It's from anonymous attendee. So if you want to clarify your question.
Let me see. Q&A. I'm going to guess that's referring to getting a tiny home registered, and I have no idea. If you built the tiny home on your own, the process of building would have had to be well documented, and getting it registered is going to differ depending on what state you're in. Maine recently came out with a new process. Massachusetts has its own process, but yeah, we don't know a whole lot about tiny homes on wheels and the registration process and all that. And I do apologize if that is not what you were referring to. Alrighty, thank you very much, everybody. Hope this was helpful, and look forward to hopefully meeting some people and learning about what they're trying to build. Have a great night and have a great Memorial weekend.